Hi everybody, welcome back to DayZ, and in this beginner's guide I want to show you how you can compare files so that you can figure out when there's a new update to DayZ which entries you should be adding to your custom file. So let's say you run a community server on PC, PlayStation or Xbox consoles and you edit the types.xml so that you get more baked beans. So you've got your custom file and you're doing it that way, so in effect you're editing the whole types.xml. Or you might have a separate file that's being edited via CFG Economy Core. But then a new update comes out where the devs add some more stuff into it. How can you figure out what stuff they've added to, so that you can then include those files either in your big types.xml that you keep, or so you can add them to an extra CFG Economy Core type file so you can have more of things. So the specific examples we're looking at in this video is with update 1.28, where there's the new rack submachine gun and there's the new, I think it's the S12. So I'm going to show you, talk you through some of the steps that you can take so that you can then find out what these items are. Now, the resources we're going to be using is Notepad++. So if you haven't downloaded it, installed it already, Notepad++ is really cool. And you'll also be wanting the compare plugin for Notepad++. So I'll put links to these in the description below this video. You'll also want to have installed the DayZ experimental server and the DayZ server as well, to be honest. So it really helps if you've got DayZ on PC. This comes free with that. So you just install it. Don't run it from here, the DayZ server, and have that as well. Other resources we will be using as well are the Behemoth Interactive DayZ Central Economy GitHub repository. And also we're going to be looking at the blog posts, and we're going to be looking at the patch notes, and we're going to be using the very excellent Balshad's Coding 101 Discord, because he has a section for updated items, which is absolutely marvellous. So let's start right at the beginning. So the first thing you can do is you can just have a look when an update comes out, like 1.28 experimental. You can just have a look what they say that's going to be in there. So they'll say, all right, we're going to be adding some more things. So they're going to be adding, they haven't got the machine gun, so we've got these new scopes they're adding that we can see there, and they'll talk about other stuff. But when you actually go to the patch notes, they go into a little bit more detail. So if we scroll down, so you've got these. So the Rack 30, this is what they added to start off with: the Rack 37 submachine gun, the new PSO6 scope, the Mark IV Leopard scope, the Sport Point sights, and then they also added the, I'm going to say it's called the S12 shotgun as well in a hot fix or another update. So, but the problem with this is it doesn't give us any item and class names, and it doesn't give us any details like, well, how many are spawning in, where are they spawning in, are they a tiered item? We don't know anything like that at all. So, but this gives us an idea of what we should be looking at. So what you could do next is you could nip over, and I'll put a link to his Discord, go over to Balshad's Discord and see if he's added the 1.28 stuff in yet. At the moment it looks like he hasn't. He's got the 1.27 stuff. But if you were doing this after 1.28 had gone live, you would find it there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to find out the new items by comparing the 1.27 server files with the 1.28 experimental server files. And then we're going to get Notepad++ to show us which ones are which. So how do we get hold of these? Well, if we go to the Behemoth Interactive GitHub repository, we can download all the latest mission files. And what they're on at the moment, because as of recording this video, they're still on update 1.27, as it says here. We click on code and we download zip, and this will give us everything. And in this example, we're interested in DayZ offline.Cherners Plus, that mission. So download it to your computer, copy it to another file called DayZ modding or something like that, then open up another folder that says something like DayZ 1.27 mission files. So that's nice and safe. So that's ready to go. Now, if you are looking at this after 1.28 goes live, this would be 1.28. And the way that you could get the previous versions is if you click on here you can see we've got 1.27, 1.26, 1.25, etc. going backwards. However, we're on 1.28 experimental at the moment, so we need to get the 1.28 experimental files. One day, hopefully, they'll put them into here, but at the moment they don't. So this is where Steam comes in handy and where the experimental server comes in handy. So you install that, and then if you right click, go properties, and then go to install files, and then go to browse. This will take you to where your DayZ server experimental is. So on my computer it's on C, program files x86, Steam apps common, DayZ server, and here it is. And then in the missions, here we go. We've got the missions for 1.28 experimental. So this is pretty cool, isn't it? Now, obviously, there's a lot of files here as well to look at. So you think, well, which ones have changed? So what you can do is just look at the date modified. Now, if you've just installed this, the problem is the date installed will probably be today, whatever date that is. But the idea is moving forward, you'll have this installed and you'll know the changes. So I can quickly look through here and look for anything that says 2025, and then anything that kind of says May 2025. Because if it says that, then I know there's been a change. So if we go, for example, to the DB directory, so this has got the types in, for example, I can see that the types.xml was modified on the 14th of the 5th, 2025. So that means this has been updated for update 1.28. Whereas if we look at the economy file, that hasn't changed since 2023. So that hasn't been changed for update 1.28. And the globals file hasn't been changed since January of 2025. Now that might have been me changing as well, so that hasn't been updated. Neither has the messages. What you'll also get to know is as you do more server modding, you'll know which files get modified. How can I put this? That affect things. So, for example, with this particular update where we've got the new rack submachine gun and we've got the new shotgun, the files that we know they're going to be changes in, there's definitely going to be a change in types, because that's the file that controls how many of something spawns in and where it spawns in terms of, is it an industrial thing? Is it a military thing? Is it a town and city thing? Is it, is it a tiered thing? And also the other one, the common one, is cfgspawnabletypes. So this is the file that tells this game when you spawn in a rack submachine gun, should it spawn in with a magazine or not? And say if it is a more complicated weapon like an M416, should it spawn in with a stock, a magazine, and a sight and a suppressor? That controls what the percentage chance of that is. The other one that often gets overlooked when people are doing this particular way, where they've got their set of files for doing everything, is actually no, it's CFG spawnable types again, because that's zombies. I was going to say, because sometimes zombies will spawn in with items, not weapons, but maybe they'll spawn in with something in the backpack, and that might be there. So anyway, by installing the DayZ server experimental, we've now got a copy of the experimental files for 1.28 ahead of time. So that's really, really cool. And then what you will have done as well is you could have downloaded, as we just did, the 1.27 files, or you could install DayZ server and just have that installed. Now, just because they're installed doesn't mean you've got to use them and create a local server. But if you've got that installed, as I have here, we could go to manage, browse local files, and there they are. So these are in program files x86, Steam apps common, DayZ server. And if we go down here to missions, there we go, DayZ offline.channels+, they're there as well. So as you can see, we've got both copies of the server file, but what I kind of recommend is you pull the files out of here and put them somewhere else. So I have a DayZ modding folder here, and what you'll see here is I've got DayZ 127 vanilla, and then I've got my modded files as well. So as soon as 1.28 vanilla comes available, I'll then download that, and I'll have a 128 vanilla file, which I'll just sit here, and that will be my reference going forward. So we want to see the rack, and we want to need the shotgun. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this 127 vanilla, and we're going to go into DayZ offline.channels+, like so, and we're going to go into DB, and we're going to open up the types like that. So there we go. So this is the vanilla types for 1.27. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to where DayZ Server Experimental was, which is here. I might do something first, actually. Let's have a quick look. Right, what I'm going to do, just to make sure that these are the vanilla files, if you ever do any mucking around with these files because you're running like a local experimental server or something, what you can do is you can go to DayZ Server, Experimental Server, you can right-click Properties, Installed Files, and Verify Integrity of Tool Files. And this way, if you've been messing around with the files, this will make sure that they're okay and that they're the latest files as well. I'm just going to do that. It doesn't take very long because these files, they're very small. There we go. So it's downloaded that. So we can make sure that the integrity of these files is true. So let's just come out of that, go into DB, and let's open up the types file. So edit with Notepad++. So here we go. So we've got, let's put that one there. So that's the 127 file. That's the experimental. So that's the 128. So all we need to do now is just go in plugins, compare. And it looks at them all. Let's go to the top. And it's a big file, types.xml. But if we look on the right-hand side, this will then have all the changes in. And it takes a while to look through, but you can just use your mouse wheel, and we can drag this down here just to look at stuff. We can just do it slowly. Right, so if we start at the top and go down, so what we can see is what have we got here? 127. You can see that actually the number of AK-74s has gone down. That's interesting. So you could make that change if you wanted to your file. AK-74U has gone down. We can scroll down here. Let's have a look at what this changes. The CZ61 has been taken out of tier 2. Again, you might want to do these changes, you might not want. We can go to here. The FAL has gone down by 1. Let's have a look at what this is. Oh, see, and also you'll find things like this. Now this is interesting. I spotted this actually when I was doing Spender, but didn't think. So there's now a fireplace fire barrel. So that's interesting. And if we look at it, it's crafted. So we know that there's a fire barrel, isn't there? Which is normally where you take a barrel and you poke holes in it with a screwdriver and it becomes a fire barrel. So what? A fireplace fire barrel. Now what this might be is they've just renamed that item for some strange reason. From like a fire barrel to a fireplace fire barrel. Or maybe we can do something different with this. I haven't got time to investigate it now, so we're going to leave it. But as you can see, sometimes you find these secret things. See what this changes. Hunting optic, gone down by half, and they've changed the tier on it. Let's pull this down. Okay, so land, boat, small, dynamic. So these are the new dynamic events that are going to be coming from 1.28. So even if something has a nominal of 0, so it doesn't spawn in order for it to hang around on the server, it must be included in types.xml. Otherwise, it would just stop. It would just disappear on a restart. So they're there. So that's interesting, isn't it? And there's another one, Landrec Medic Beach. I think they're ambulance events, aren't they? Now, this is another new thing that I haven't had a chance to look at, but they've added. So we've now got, it looks like, so they're not crafted, Leaf Crown Autumn, Leaf Crown Spring. So you're going to be able to find these leaf crowns. I can only imagine there's something to do with like Walpurgis Night or maybe Halloween that they've put in that will then spawn probably around a bonfire, I would imagine. But you could change that to 1. You know, change the number to 10, change the minimum to 5, get them spawning in, or you could spawn them in on an experimental server, on a experimental server as an admin. What was that one? Leaf Crown. M16 changes. Obviously, this is in alphabetical order. Here we go. So these are the new optics now. So the Mark IV Optic Black. So these are now the things that you would be adding into your file. So you would go File, Open, File New, for example, and then what you could do is you could put that there. Put it there? No. Put that there. Why is that doing that? Anyway, what we could do is we could copy that there. We could put it in there. And this would then be our record of the new items. Keep scrolling through here. Let's go back to here so we can see the compare. Oh, what's this? The mag PM73. Right, so now we're cooking on gas because the rack is the rack PM73. So here we have those. So we want to copy that out. And then we can put this in here. We can go back. So we've got that. What we got? So the ump's getting a few more mags. Scroll this down to here. Right, so there's the rack, which is a submachine gun. Let's put that in there. This is the new PSO6 optic. Got that in there. SKS has had a change. Why don't we see that one? Ump 45's had a change. VSS. Why don't we find the S12? Let's have a look. Control F. Oh, R12 is it? Find on the current document. R12. Oh, there it is. I just must have skipped past it because I was going too fast. So there's the entry for the R12 shotgun. So we could copy that, put that in there. So there we go. So what we've done there is by comparing those two files, we've now got a list of all the new items, not the edits to the other ones, but a list of all the new items we would have to include in our edited types.xml should we wish to change, to have them spawning in on our server, or if you were creating a separate CFG economy core types.xml file and you're going to have more or less of these particular items, or you're going to change where they spawn or their tier value, this would be the basis of that as well. And I've done separate videos about that. You can check the thing for that. So we're just going to get rid of that because we don't need that. So that's types. That's doing types. So let's have a look at CFG spawnable types this time. Which is the other big one. And obviously things like events are going to change as well. But if we go to CFG spawnable types, where we got? There it is. So let's edit with Notepad++. So that's the experimental server one. And then we want, that's experimental server as well. That's 127 vanilla. So this is the one we want. So CFG spawnable types. Said it was Notepad++. Let's put that one there. Plugins, compare. Boop, 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 boop. Here we go. So as you can see straight away, we've got some changes to the CZ527, where before you only had the option of the hunting optic might spawn on the CZ527 and the Winchester. Now it's the sporting optic or the hunting optic. The sporting optic being the new, is it the new 2 times? And if we scroll down a little bit further, Ruger 22, again, they're adding the sporting optic as a chance to spawn on those, so you could take those out. Done the same with the Scout, CZ550. There we go. So this is the new CFG spawnable types entry for the rack. So the rack submachine gun, you've got the damage bits there, so you can change that to 0 and 0 should you wanted to. And then you've got a 30% chance that it'll either spawn with a 15 round mag or a 25 round mag. Of the two, you've got an 80% chance the fact it's going to be a 15 round mag. And then with the R12 shotgun, they've given it a roughly 30% chance that it's going to spawn with a universal light. Well, actually, it's a 30% chance of a 30% chance. So what's that? Is that 10%? And then they've done the same chance that it will spawn in with an optic as well. So the shotgun can spawn into something. So they would be the ones that you would spawn into. You would edit with your CFG spawnable types file, whether that be to add them into a boosted loot vanilla type file or add them as a separate CFG economy core type file. So there we go. So you can do that, and you can go through all the files and add them. I just want to finish off just by going back to my files to kind of explain why you would do it this way. So the difficult thing about having one types.xml file. So let me show you. Let me show you what I mean. Repositories. Here we go. So the way that I used to do my files is the way I used to do my boosted loot files was that you go to my GitHub repository, and there would be a types.xml file. And this file, what I would do is, before an update, I would go through the experimental and compare that with the last version, and I would put in the new items, or I would just edit the experimental version and then boost it or reduce it as I saw fit. So it would take me a few hours to do it, and so I would end up with a types.xml file that would replace the existing types.xml file on your server. The advantage of doing it this way, it's very, very easy, because when there's been an update, all you do is you do the update so that the server changes, the server DXE program in the background changes to the latest update, and then you upload this over the top of the existing types.xml, and then you've got boosted loot. Really easy to do, really easy to understand. The problem with doing this like this way is that you have to update this file every update, and you have to include the things that have changed in terms of extra things, but also you might well miss out on other loot changes that the devs decide to make in terms of tier changes and changing where things spawn. So the cleaner way to do it is kind of the way that I do it now, is using the CFG economy core method. So, and I'll put a link to my tutorial on how you do this. So with the CFG economy core method, instead of having one massive types.xml file that replaces the vanilla types.xml file, you just have one that is an addendum or an addition to the existing one. So the CFG economy core file, what you can do with that, you can put a reference in there and say, look, once you've looked through the vanilla types.xml, can you have a look at this one? And the changes that are in this one, could you make them? And so that's the way it works. So this file, if we click on it, is much, much smaller than the normal types.xml. And the big advantage of doing it this way is that when there's an update to the server and you reset the mission XMLs to default, so you upload the latest 1.28 ones, those files will work. And then your file, your extra file, will work as well as soon as you've edited the CFG economy core. Now, you won't boost any of the new items that you haven't added to your extra types.xml file, but because you're relying on the vanilla types.xml to start off with, the server will naturally do that. So giving this one as an example for update 1.28, let's say I hadn't got this file ready for 1.28. So what would happen is, and all I had was the 1.27 version of this. What would happen is when 1.28 goes live on June the 3rd, I would update my server. Well, Nitrado would update the server. I would update the XMLs on console by resetting the XMLs to default, so they go to 1.28 vanilla. On PC, I'd have to upload the files from experimental to do that. And then even though they say that the rack isn't included in this file, so the rack wouldn't get boosted, but all the other guns still would. In fact, you could carry on using this 1.27 version of this way of editing the files forever. You could just use it. Now, it would mean that every single new item that you wanted to be boosted that was in the vanilla files wouldn't get boosted, but it would spawn in, and all the other stuff would get boosted. So although it's a bit of a pain to set up initially the CFG economy core, going forward, it's a much cleaner way of editing your loot economy on your community server for PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. So there we go. That is how you can compare vanilla files so that you can come up with the additional items that you need to add in to your edited mission files. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And of course, I'll see you again soon.